Almost a year ago, I visited the Universal Studios Resort in Florida. I really enjoyed my time at both Islands of Adventure and kind of enjoyed my time at Universal Studios Orlando. In today's video, we are going to be reviewing a specific coaster that really surprised me, and that is Incredible Hulk at Islands of Adventure. I never really enjoyed B&M loopers or just loopers in general, and I was not holding my head too high for this coaster, but it really surprised me. I think it's one of the best looping coasters in the world. Now I will explain why in just a second, but let's talk about my experiences with the Incredible Hulk. I went to Islands of Adventure during Hell Week, aka Christmas break. Take in mind that the temperatures were relatively colder than what Florida is used to, but by no means was it cold. At my time at Islands of Adventure, I only managed to get 2 rides on the Incredible Hulk, one in the front and one in the back. But I do think I got a good understanding of the ride and I really enjoyed both experiences. For one, when you walk into the park, this is one of the first things you see when you get past the port of entry. It's one of the grandest reveals to exist. You walk into the park and velocicoaster comes into your vision and Hulk's on the left, and it's just mind-blowing. I absolutely love the lake in the center of the park, and Hulk adds on to this beautiful skyline. Now, Hulk is a large-scale extreme coaster by Bolliger and Mavillard. It's not heavily themed like Hagrid's or Velocicoaster, but it is still very well themed. The entrance plaza does a pretty good job at hyping you up for the coaster. There's broken track and Hulk is hoisting up a part of a train. It looks pretty cool. For the queue line, I did wait in the express line, but it basically just gave me a bird's eye view of what the standby line looked like. And when you're outside, that line kind of sucks, but inside I think it's really cool. I don't know much about the lore behind this ride, but the whole sci-fi theme is pulled off really well. The station platform is also amazingly well themed, and I have mostly positive comments about the waiting process. My one complaint is that the locker system is a bit scuffed. I really wish Universal implemented double-sided lockers earlier in their plans, because I do like having my phone in line. This is such a first world problem, but the locker area is a heavily crowded choke point, and you do go through metal detectors, so you can't really avoid it. Velocicoaster's locker system is perfect, I just think Hulk would benefit from it too. But it's a minor complaint at that. One thing I do have to mention is props to Universal for having free lockers. SeaWorld and Great Adventure can really learn a thing or two. And it's a really nice locker system as well. Back to the station platform. Hulk is one of the coasters with the best operations in the world from my experience. When I go to a Disney park or Universal park, I am always amazed by their operations. They are undeniably quick. The best part is that it's amazing for the guests and it benefits the park as well. Now, for some reason, Hulk really opened up my eyes to what good operations look like. I don't know if it's because Incredicoaster, Velocicoaster, Hagrid's, all of these coasters have 2 across seating. But seeing ride operators pump out trains left and right with massive B&M 4 across seating, it just blew my mind. The sheer amount of attendance on the platform and how fast they check the restraints with the buckle, it just really amazed me. I wish every B&M on the planet could operate like this, but that's just a pipe dream because most B&Ms are at regional parks. Anyways, on to the ride experience. So obviously, Hulk starts out with an incline launch. This launch is definitely the defining point of the ride for most of the GP. From the walkway, seeing the coaster launch out of the massive tunnel built around it, that is what Hulk is about. Now, I was super skeptical about this launch going into the coaster. I didn't really do a lot of research about how good Hulk was, and I just knew that it was a drive tire launch. Now, I thought drive tires would suck at launches. I thought it would be incredibly weak and just be a mild boost out of the station. And even if it did get you up to a fast speed, I thought there would be literally 0 kick in it, and the acceleration would be super gradual. I was very wrong. My first ride when the drive tires kicked in, I was like, whoa, that caught me off guard. It felt a lot like an LSM launch rather than a drive tire launch. I was like, okay, the launch on Hulk is legit, it's just on a really fast lift hill. The first element out of these surprising first launches is 0 G-roll. If you know anything about me, I love 0 G-rolls, and coming straight out of a launch, oh my gosh, it is so good. The whip that you get is perfect, and then take an amazing element and then take it at a really good speed, it's just the cherry on top. Actually, take that back. The cherry on top is when you roll out of the 0 G-roll, you drop a lot. I think this is the 105-foot drop, but I'm not entirely sure, and you can correct me in the comments if I'm wrong. Now, this is one of the elements that I think is absolutely better in the front row. If you're sitting in the back, you lose a lot of speed before you go through the roll, and it takes away from the whip. The experience that's in the front row for this specific element is very good, and it's one of the many reasons why I actually prefer the front row on this coaster. I know it's controversial, but I'll get into why in a second. If the launch wasn't good enough for you, then boy oh boy, let's get into the layout. After the drop out of the 0 G roll, you hit a Cobra roll. This Cobra roll is intense, and the forces hit in all the right places. The positive Gs are legit, and it's very intense. You also get a decent amount of whip traveling in and out of the inversion. Following this amazing moment, you transition straight into a vertical loop that, guess what, provides amazing positive Gs. Following this vertical loop, you go through a surprisingly forceful helix around the launch lift hill. I was not expecting this part of the coaster to do anything, let alone be an actually intense experience. Following this helix, you hit a corkscrew. This roll has way less whip than the 0 G roll, but it's still very good. I'm just happy that they are able to keep this coaster smooth and the whip you get from these rolls does not result in any headbanging, so props to Universal for that. Next up, you hit a vertical loop with even more positive Gs. It's amazing. If you couldn't tell, Hulk is very intense, and that's why it's so good. However, after the second loop, the coaster slows down a little bit. The pull out of the loop is decently forceful, but after this, it kind of just meanders. You turn around into a mid-course brake run, and yes, this brake run actually slows you down. Essentially, the ride is over right here. The drop off the mid-course is very small, but it can give some airtime for those sitting in the back row. From my experience, there's none in the front rows. Following this drop, you hit another corkscrew. This one is taking with a lot less speed and therefore a lot worse. After this corkscrew, you hit an upward helix that's mildly intense, I guess. So that's the entire layout in a nutshell. Do you see the problem I have with it? Because it's fairly obvious. The second half of this coaster just absolutely sucks. It just does. The elements do not deliver the same amount of intensity that the first half does, and it just lacks in pacing here. Not only that, but the second half of Hulk is tucked in a plot of land behind the park that lacks significantly in theming. I honestly wouldn't mind if they had immaculate theming in this section. For example, Velocicoaster's first half is not the best, but the theming absolutely saves it. For Hulk, you kinda just go around in pointless circles here until you hit the final brake run. I feel like I'm being a little too negative because the first half is very good, the second half is not bad, it just leaves me wanting more. My favorite part about all of this though is that there is onboard audio throughout the entirety of the ride. I'm a sucker for onboard audio and Hulk pulls it off very well. I really wish the music was a tad bit louder because it's hard to hear over all the screaming, and from what I remember, the speakers are in front of you and not directly in your ears, so that's my only minor complaint with it. In my opinion, onboard audio has the ability to enhance the ride experience tenfold. So Hulk is already an amazing multi-looper, but just listening to dramatic music while riding makes the experience feel so epic. Another quick thing to mention is the first half of this coaster is very scenic. You have the intricately designed lift hill along with the 6 station building. The Cobra Roll is right over the water, then you dive into a tunnel filled with mist. Following the vertical loop, you hit a helix that goes around the lift hill one last time. The setting is near perfect for a coaster and I absolutely love it. The second half, like I said, does lack in this theming, but still, the coaster deserves a lot of credit there. And back to my front row, back row argument, I do prefer the front because of the added view. The forces are still very intense in the front row, you just get the forces delivered in different parts of each element. There's slightly less whip throughout the rest of the layout, but the whip out of the first launch makes that up for me. So while I know a lot of people prefer the back on this coaster, I actually prefer the front and it's mainly for the view. So those are my thoughts on this coaster. Hulk is an amazing experience that is highlighted by its uber intense first half and its onboard audio. The operations are probably the best in the world and Universal does a great job at pumping out trains left and right. So the real question is, how does this compare in my rankings? Incredible Hulk sits at number 5, which is surprisingly high, but take in mind I don't have that many credits. It is the highest B&M looper on my list, in fact it's the highest looper on my list. Hulk is the cutoff for the elite tier, it's S tier for me, and my number 4 coaster, which is Ghost Rider, is the first truly elite coaster on my list. So that's pretty good. I'm really curious to see how this coaster stands against other loopers as I go out and ride more and more coasters every year, but I just don't see this being beaten. I mean, a good comparison point is Kumba, and according to my editor, these coasters are very similar with Hulk even being slightly more intense, though this probably could vary based on riding conditions. I just think the onboard audio that Hulk has is a winner for me and is what makes Hulk stand apart from everything else. So is Hulk elite? No, but it's very close. Is Hulk the best B&M multi-looper? In my opinion, yes. Is Hulk the best multi-looper period? Absolutely not. This is definitely a solid ride and one of my more surprising coasters from my Florida trip. I don't necessarily love multi-loopers and I didn't think Hulk was going to be as much as a success as I thought it to be. So for our final score, I'm going to give Hulk a solid 9 out of 10. And that's all for today's video guys. As always, make sure to like and subscribe, join the Discord, link in the description. I'll see you in the next one. Have a great rest of your day. Goodbye.